So this is part A of the Khoodeelaar television channel, timed at 0840 GMT on Friday, 29th of September 2023. Now this is September, end of September coming, just one day to go. September was the month when K. Jordan would attend in an event held annually by the City of London, not the City of Westminster or the Greater London. The tiny city of London, also known as the financial, or until the creation of the Canary Wharf diversion, also used to be known as the Square Mile, the financial capital of Britain. So these people would hold an event, and Ken never told me the details of the description of the actual event or the leveling of it. But she told me that she addressed key questions when she attended the event, that focus in raising whatever questions she raised in reference to the things that the City of London promoters were claiming was always the corruption. In effect, the corruption of the City of London and big business and the banks, etc., in relation to their attitude towards the East End of London, the surrounding areas. The East End of London, starting from the only a few 100 yards from the Bishopsgate to the east of Commercial Street. The main designation, the telltale, matronizing, looking down on the East End of London was evident in the various phrases the City of London propagandists used. Now, I never got to ask Kay why it was only her that attended and raised these questions and not anybody else. What was the actual explanation as far as she could think of? But if she were to explain why there were no other person other than herself, it would have been the same kind of explanation that would apply to the absence of awareness, absence of rigor and rigorous engagement by those who claim to be representing the areas like the East End of London, Tower Hamlets, like the East London Borough of Hackney, like the East London Borough of Newham, and effectively socially comparable or socially comparably East London type of areas like Islington and even parts of Camden. So K. Jordan would say to me about the middle of September every year, one of the things that she would say without any schedule or any timetable or any prior knowledge on my part, because I was not aware of the date or the venue or the length of the actual session. So one of the things she would casually drop in between on the wall some years ago, and I haven't seen that poster or a similar display. But the words were city fringe. By definition, those two words give away the game. To the decision makers, whoever they were and are, in the name of various big business operations in the city of London, Tower Hamlets, starting from, let's say, the commercial road going east, contains the city fringe. That is a very long overdue area for diagnosis. City fringe? It's sick makingly offensive, unrepresentative, untrue, and is purports to be about the about the actual. I'll read that again, or I'll say that again. The city fringe, by the words, two words, city fringe, gives the game away, which is that to the ones that use city fringe as a positive, accepted, or acceptable phrase, areas like Tower Hamlets are not parts of the normal description of what constitutes the City of London. Now, this is a mentality that is connected with the various historic attempts over the last 100 years or even longer to assign to what is now Tower Hamlets, the borough of Tower Hamlets, the Brick Lane area, and the areas to the east and south of Aldgate East. People and communities that are to be treated as less than equal or less than deserving to be equal. The outlets that sell the Communist Party morning scar, which in the city, the greater London city, I mean, of more than 8 million people, I don't believe that it sells through news outlets more than 100 copies. And this is something that should be treated as being equally as alarming and as bad as the annual sitting and the annual kind of deliberations of the operatives claiming to be deliberating on the future of the City of London. Now, today's newspapers, Friday's newspapers, include the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Times, and the I newspaper, which we can take a brief look at. To begin with, the Daily Mail has got the word, one single word, moronic, on the front page, which is clear and identifiable. It's on top of an image of the still alive sycamore tree at the Hadrian's Wall. The tree has been murdered by a criminal who took the murdered tree to various the sycamore tree, Daily Mail, which uses the word moronic. Obviously, it is describing the murderer of the sycamore tree, and it says in the subheading, for 300 years, this majestic sycamore graced Hadrian's wall until an act of utterly mindless vandalism felled it. Now, as the nation needs, reels in disgust, a 16-year-old boy is arrested. Now, as I have said yesterday, the indigenous, mainly indigenous Anglo-Saxon type, mainly white pigmented young personnel, and their counterparts from the numerically much smaller African and Asian backgrounded individuals who have been born in the United Kingdom because of their birth only. That the mainly indigenous Anglo-Saxon backgrounded individuals, mostly young personnel and their counterparts from the African and the Asian backgrounds, they are averse to working and with ingratitude. They think, as they totally refuse to accept any responsibility for being in the society that keeps them. They don't accept they've got an obligation to work and they have an obligation to transparently work. That is to say, it's not to be confused with a fabricated record. And I'm talking mainly about male ones and their counterparts from the African background and the Asian background, the Caribbean backgrounds. They behave as if the whole country belongs to them, but that belonging is not to be tested by their putting in any amount of energy to creating a service to other people that actually work in society. So this is the kind of demographic dystopia that has been created in the United Kingdom by successive criminals that have set the agenda and narratives. And this means that all of this happened irrespective of, regardless of, the arrival in the United Kingdom of Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is the chief editor. Rupert Murdoch is the chief editor, but according to Nick Davies of The Guardian, Murdoch is not a journalist, but he is credited as a journalist by others. all the outlets that the Murdoch empire has been in control of for the last 50 years, let's say. These outlets are directly responsible for the degeneration of the idea of responsible social membership. For example, when in 1970, a man called Tosirali, who came from Silot, I think in the Asirganj area in Silot, which is not far from where I was born and brought up in Sundarpur in Silot. When Mr. Tosirali, a manual worker in the Savoy Hotel, the Savoy Hotel is pronounced by the Siloti speakers as Subway Hotel. It seems that the reason why used by the Siloti origin people in the last 100 years or so is a phonetics quite literally based on the phonetics. So Subway Hotel is based on the phonetic perception of the Siloti speaking people of the sound of the Subway Hotel when the Silotis have mentioned the Subway Hotel at any time. Anyway, Mr. Tosirali was murdered in a stabbing in Stepney, which happened not far from where he lived. Now, when he was murdered in 1970, in the immediate aftermath of the murder of Mr. Tosirali, the social aspects of the crime of his murder were kind of described by the by Fleet Street and by their associated kind of subsidiaries as being connected with a thing they called Paki bashing, attacking Pakistanis This is an incomplete introduction to this edition. But the murder of the sycamore tree at the Adrian's Wall yesterday by a 16-year-old perpetrator is the evidence of the cruelty of the mentality of the so-called indigenous individuals. Cruelty of the mentality can be found in the same way operating in the minds of those criminals who perpetrated the serial plots against baby angel Geronimo. It is true that this 16-year-old has been arrested. 16-year-old boy is arrested. But the assumption normally accompanying the use of the word arrest or the concept of the word arrest that some action will be taken. That assumption should be removed because everything that is to be found as the blessing of nature, blessing of God, the blessing of God in the context of our commentary, seen in the creation and the life of baby angel Geronimo. Everything that is a blessing from God is targeted by the evilness that challenged as briefly discussed in the Surah Al Isra. Evilness challenged God, that evilness would challenge God and divert as many people as possible away from God's instructions and orders and agenda. So, what happened in the years of plotting the Surah Al Isra, that part where it says, Ja al haqqu zahak al batil, innal batila kana zahuka. Truth has arrived and falsehood vanished. Indeed, falsehood is doomed to vanish. As I said yesterday, when Donald Trump was condemned by a judge in the USA as having inflated the value of his assets for decades, that is the kind of vindication moment of what the Holy Quran says. Truth has arrived and falsehood vanished. Because with the judge recognizing that Trump has been a liar on a mega scale for decades, The facade that he had created over the decades, the lying facade that he had properties worth much more than they were. That is the falsehood, the batil. Batil, the Arabic, means falsehood. And haq is the truth. So, ja al haqqu zahak al batil. Truth has arrived and the falsehood has disappeared, vanished. Innal batila kana zahuka. Indeed, falsehood is bound to disappear, perish. Every time that happens, the Quran is vindicated, the truth is vindicated. And every time this happens, the lies of Defra are reiterated in the behavior. Baby angel Geronimo has been witnessing the lies of the Defra liars. We shall be continuing all the updates in the next edition. This is 40 minutes approximately. This incomplete introduction being ended at 09:16 hours GMT on Friday the 29th of September 2023.